A school bus full of kids breaks down on a narrow mountain road, its front wheels hanging inches from a deadly cliff. No help in sight, no signal, and time running out. Then, a lone mechanic arrives. But can one man save dozens of lives before it's too late? If this story moved you, hit subscribe for more real-life hero tales. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear greasy overalls and carry a rusty toolbox. This is the story of a humble mechanic who, on an ordinary day, did something extraordinary, saving the lives of dozens of children when no one else could. It was a cold and misty morning in the quiet town of Timber Ridge. The winding roads up the mountain were narrow, steep, and barely wide enough for a single vehicle. The fog hung like a ghostly veil, blurring the edge where the road met a deadly drop. On that particular morning, a school bus full of excited children was on its way to a school camping trip, an annual tradition that every kid in Timber Ridge looked forward to. The bus driver, Mr. Jenkins, a kind man with grey hair and a gentle voice, hummed along to an old tune as the children laughed and sang. No one expected what would happen next. As the bus climbed a particularly steep section of the road, something snapped. A loud clank, then a grinding screech. The bus lurched. Mr. Jenkins slammed on the brakes. Nothing. The steering wheel stiffened. The bus rolled to a shaky stop, right at the edge of a cliff. The children screamed. Some clutched their seats, others held each other. The front wheels were inches, literally inches, from going over the edge. Mr. Jenkins radioed for help, but the remote mountains had no signal. His face turned pale. The brakes were failing, the road was too narrow for any large tow truck, and the rear tire looked like it was about to blow. One wrong move, one nudge forward, and they would all fall hundreds of feet below. Meanwhile, Joe Carter, a 46-year-old mechanic, known around town for fixing everything from tractors to coffee machines, was sipping his morning coffee at his small garage. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't even have employees, just old tools, a loyal dog named Rusty, and a reputation for never saying no to a job. Just as he was about to close for the day, thinking he'd have a rare day off, a frantic knock came at the door. It was Emily, a teacher from the school. "Joe, the school bus, it's stuck on Eagle's Bend. The brakes are out. The kids, they're trapped." Joe didn't hesitate. He didn't ask how or why or if someone else had been called. He grabbed his toolbox, threw it in his old pickup truck, and drove off like lightning. The road up the mountain was treacherous. Loose gravel skidded under Joe's tires. Visibility was low. But Joe pushed forward, honking occasionally, hoping not to run into another vehicle. As he climbed higher, he finally saw the bus, leaning dangerously close to the edge. The kids inside were crying, some praying. Mr. Jenkins was outside, waving frantically. Joe stopped his truck and didn't waste a second. Joe slid under the bus and immediately saw the damage. The brake line had snapped, the steering column was jammed, and the rear axle was hanging on by a bolt. Worse, the right rear tire had a gash, ready to burst. Any movement could send the bus tumbling down the cliff. Joe's hands moved fast. His fingers, calloused from decades of work, twisted bolts, rerouted wires, and tied temporary hoses with whatever he could find, including his own shoelace. The kids watched silently, their faces pressed against the glass, eyes wide with fear and hope. He was alone. No help. No machines. Just one man, one box of tools, and dozens of lives hanging in the balance. As Joe tightened the last bolt and wiped sweat from his forehead, the bus creaked. A loose rock rolled off the cliff. Time stopped. Joe knew the bus had to be moved backward. just a few feet to secure it completely. But doing that with faulty brakes and a shredded tire, impossible, unless... Joe climbed into the driver's seat. Mr. Jenkins, shouting, "Joe, what are you doing?" "Joe, someone has to drive it back. You get the kids out the moment it's stable." He turned the key. The bus roared to life. The children screamed again as the vehicle jolted in reverse. Inch by inch, Joe guided the massive machine away from the edge. Every second felt like a century. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Then, with a final thud, the bus rolled back to solid ground. Safe. Cheers erupted. Children ran out, hugging their teachers, their friends. Some hugged Joe, who stood silently, covered in grease, a calm smile on his face. One little boy looked up and asked, "Are you a superhero?" Joe chuckled. "No, kid, just a mechanic." But that day, to every parent in Timber Ridge, Joe Carter was a true hero. A few days later, the town held a small ceremony. The mayor handed Joe a certificate of bravery, but Joe tried to wave it off. "I just did what needed to be done. Anyone would have done the same." But everyone knew. Not everyone would have had the courage to face death head-on to save others. In a world where we often look up to celebrities and fictional heroes, it's easy to forget that real heroes walk among us, quietly, humbly, and without applause. Joe Carter didn't need headlines, he didn't need medals. He just needed his tools and a heart big enough to carry a whole town. So the next time you pass by a mechanic shop, remember, sometimes that's where heroes live. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the world needs